All right, hello and welcome. Just lost my Zoom controls here, so un momento. And make sure I turn off that and change the view. There we go. Okay, welcome to today's YFP 101. We're going to be getting to know your Zoom account just a little bit deeper this time, and I'm going to be jumping into, once I share my screen, and there we go. We're going to be going into more of your account settings and things like that, how you can add a profile picture, all that good stuff. So today we're going to be going through setting up your profile, adding a profile picture to your Zoom account so that when you have your video off and you're signed in, it'll show your picture. Editing, doing some basic meeting settings so that you know which ones to have on, which ones to have off. So one thing you may not know is that when you first start your Zoom account, the live stream isn't automatically enabled. So I'll show you where you can do that, how you can have backgrounds, filters, all that good stuff, and then what you can turn off and what you can't. So if you're brand new to YFP, a little bit about us. We are your Freedom Project, or as we say, YFP for short. And YFP is a 360-degree ecosystem of tools and training that can help you find new builders, find new customers, and increase sales and retention. And YFP addresses the three specific areas that builders struggle with in Shaklee, which is not knowing where to go to find people to talk to, not knowing what to do with the people they find, and not having a formula or plan to stay on track and measure success. YFP supports your growth in three main ways with tools, training, and support. So this is all going to be live from my Zoom account, so you can see exactly what's going on. And so I will stop that and move over to my Zoom account. Okay, and I'll grab my annotate too, because that is always handy to have a spotlight. So the first place I want to start is the profile. Okay, so on your profile, there's a few things you can do, and you'll see down here on the left-hand side, you have all these controls. We're not going through all of them. I'm going to go through the ones that you absolutely need, and then the other ones, a lot of them, unless you're going to be doing really complicated things, you won't necessarily need a whole bunch of those. Okay, so from your profile, this is where you can add or edit a profile picture. So if you don't have one, it'll probably just be that little gray outline profile guy. I can't remember exactly what it looks like because I've had a profile picture on for so gosh darn long. But to edit it, you can either hover over top of it and click on the little pencil, or use the edit button on the right-hand side. Either way will work just lovely. And then it's just a matter of, oh, sorry, wrong way. And this is why things change. 1 second, cancel that. Go back to profile. There we go. Okay, so to edit the photo, you hover over top of the picture, you click on edit, and it'll ask you where you want to pick an image from. It may sometimes look distorted, and then you can adjust it, but you would, to change picture, click on change, and then it'll ask you where you want to pick one from. Okay, and to get a picture, let me see here, what do I have? I've got a lot of PJ on here at the moment. So let's just say we're going to switch it over to this one. You select the image you want, you go open, it'll update it in here for you, and then you just move your little cursor. You can also bring it in and crop it if you just want your headshot to be a little smaller, and then you save it. Okay, and so now you've got a new profile picture. I probably put mine in just a little too close. I should have come back a little bit more, but it's entirely up to you. Actually, Joyce, though, if you guys look at the screen here, I'll stop screen share for a second so all of you can see this, and I will change my view. So if you look at Joyce's and also Ariella's, they're both great size. It's not too big, it's not too small. You can clearly see who they are. Those are fantastic. Same thing with PJ. Kathy's is fantastic. So something where it's easy to see you is the basics of that, okay?
I have a question about that. How come yours is more full and mine is smaller? Like when I stop mine is smaller and theirs is larger. Do you know what causes that?
That might be the size of the photo that you uploaded, or maybe you brought it in just a little too small when you did the editing. That might be the reason. I couldn't tell you for sure, but that would be my guess. Okay, so to edit your picture again, it's just you hover over top of the picture, edit it, and you're good to go. Now to edit any of this information, that's where you use, or your name, anything like that, you use this little edit guy on the right-hand side, and you can put in your name, if you have to put in any of that stuff, what you do. So this is all just your personal information. There's not much I would add on here other than my name and my display name. So how do you want your name displayed? That's where you would put all of that. If you want to have your company, I don't think any of that shows up on Zoom, but if you want it there, you can. And then you just click save and it'll save it for you. So that's where all of this information is. That's all I've input. That's all that's going to show up. Okay. If you need to edit like a phone number, so you want to have a phone number, very simple. You just add a phone number, select your country or region, put your phone number in, and then you can label it to whether it's your mobile, office, home, or fax. Does anyone still fax these days? I don't know if that still happens or not.
Yes.
Do they? Okay,
sometimes
good to know,
fax.
Kathy. Thank you. Another important thing is having your time zone in your time zone so that when you're setting meetings, it's not confusing for everybody. Because if you set it in, say you haven't updated this to be in your time zone and it's set to another time zone, when you set a meeting, it's going to throw it off for everybody. Because so if I set a meeting up in Mountain Time, it'll show up for anybody who's in Eastern Time at the right time for them, Eastern Time. Whereas if I have it set up in in Eastern Time, but I set it up like I want it to be at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, but I'm still in Eastern Time, it'll show up for everybody that they're supposed to be there at 8 when they're actually supposed to be there at 6. Okay, so make sure that you have that saved, and it's as simple as clicking the edit, select the drop down, what's your time zone, and then save. How do you want your date and time format? It's entirely up to you, but you can edit it where if you want the month, day, year, you can have all these other options, which is again, just personal preference for you. Okay, save it. And then do you want to use 12-hour time or do you prefer 24-hour time? So I use 12-hour time. It's easier for me. I have not been very proficient in learning 24-hour time, but for those of you who do it, I gotta say I commend you. And then save it. So then you're good to go. Now the meeting pieces, if you can only do this, by the way, if you have a paid account. A free account will be limited on what you can edit. So for me, I can actually edit my personal ID, which is just my childhood phone number. I do recommend just using your phone number. It's way easier when you're relaying it to somebody. You know your phone number very well, so you don't have to log into your account to get it every time. That's why I just use my childhood phone number, because I will always remember it. But that's what I recommend. Just put in your phone number. It's nice and easy to remember, and then save it. Zoom, when you create an account or when you purchase an account, will always give you a default meeting ID. So that's one of the first things I recommend you edit. Change it to just change it to your phone number, or if you want, you can change it to your childhood phone number. If you don't want everybody to have your phone number, that is okay too. And then if your parents still have that phone number, it's really fun and exciting when people try to phone them. Okay, and then your Zoom link is just going to be this little piece here. So the us02web.zoom.us/j/ your meeting ID. Okay, if you need a host key, you can also do that. And you can edit this as well to whatever you want it to be. Make it a number that's easy for you. Your host key is, say you're not logged into Zoom, but you have a meeting and you need to claim host so that you can have the meeting controls and all that stuff. This is the key you need. So make it a 6-digit number that's easy for you to remember, so that anytime you don't have to log in to find your host key. So whether it's, I don't know, what can you do with 6 numbers? You could do a date if you wanted to. So if there's a date that you remember, a specific year and a day, or a year and a month, whatever it might be, you can do that as well. Okay. Oh, is the screen still black or did it fix? I'm assuming it fixed because no one said anything yet. All right. All of this stuff, of course, won't change, but this will tell you when you come down to account, This will tell you if you have a licensed or a free account. So licensed means it's paid for, and free obviously is free. It'll tell you how many participants you can have in your meeting. If you need to increase meeting capacity, you can do that there. Of course, it'll be an extra charge. And then your account number, which is handy when you are needing to talk to Zoom support. Down here is your login information. So it'll show you the email that you use for login. It'll have your password. I'm not opening mine up. But you can edit your password from here. If you want to have two-factor authentication, you can turn it on. I don't recommend it. It is a pain. It's frustrating because then you got to wait for either a text message or an email to fully log in. So if that is turned off or turned on, turn it off immediately. It's going to save you a lot of pain and suffering in the end. If you have any linked accounts, you can have those. Those will be for like the enterprise account and above. Actually, the enterprise account is like top tier. So if you have a pro account like mine, I don't think you can link other accounts to it. And then down here, this is just other stuff. So if you want to integrate your calendar, like your Google Calendar, Microsoft Exchange, that type of thing, you can do that in here as well. Okay. I don't have it turned on. I don't worry too much about it at the time, but if you need to have that on, definitely turn that on. Okay, so those are the basics of your profile, and this just helps it make it easier for particularly your meeting ID and your host key so that you have something that you always will remember, and then you don't have to log in to find that information all the time. So anytime, you know, if someone can't get into my Zoom meeting, I know exactly what number to send them. It's a number I've been using since I was like 5 years old. Okay, phone numbers work the best. Now, go ahead, PJ.
I have another question. How is the phone number used with your Zoom account? See, I just have a basic account at this point. I'm thinking about upgrading, but I haven't yet. But how is your phone number used?
So my phone number then turns into the meeting ID for my Zoom. So when I start a meeting, I can just send someone the phone number. That's what they would type in for the meeting ID.
Okay.
It's just an easier way to remember it rather than using the Zoom generated one.
Well, I know you use the phone number for the Zoom ID, but you also have your phone number entered separately, right? Or do you not?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
If you put your phone number in and people start realizing, excuse me, that Zoom has your phone numbers, and then they get to know your phone number someplace else in the web, okay, they could use that just to come into any of your meetings whenever you're there.
Yes.
Especially if you don't have a password for them.
Yeah, or a waiting room on, which I'll talk about the security piece on the others in just a second.
Okay,
because
I was wondering.
So that's one reason too. Well, it doesn't really matter, but I do recommend, especially if you don't want people to phone you. I know this isn't quite what you're mentioning, Kathy, but if you don't want people to phone you, use a childhood phone number. Most of us, I think, can remember our childhood phone number. Luckily,
so
my dad doesn't have it anymore.
Phone calls to someone else.
Yes, well, my dad doesn't have that phone number anymore, so I don't know who it would go to anymore. But just if you want to protect your phone number, use a childhood phone number. And then when it comes to the security piece, so if someone has your number, obviously they can join your meeting, right? This is kind of a good thing, but also what kind of drives me crazy. In the meeting settings, so down here on the left-hand side, we're going to go into the meeting settings. Or sorry, that's not meeting settings. We have to go down to settings. My bad. We'll get there. Okay, so down this left-hand side, go into settings. Right up at the top, a while ago, Zoom made it where you either have to have your waiting room on or a password at all times for any of your meetings. So someone can't just come in. I always have my waiting room on. I'd rather do that than a password because it's easier for the people coming in. So I can always monitor who's coming in. And then, you know, if someone has your meeting ID, and let's say you have a password on, they can't get in unless they have the password, even if they have your meeting ID. Same thing if they have your meeting ID and you have the waiting room on, they can't get in unless you admit them. So you'll be able to see who's there before anything happens. So you don't have to worry too much about people just popping in because they can't. They would either need to have the password or you would have to admit them in from the waiting room. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, another question. I have been setting my meetings up on just a meeting, scheduling it ahead. I go all the way down to the very bottom and I put more, and he'll ask 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And I usually put anywhere between 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting that they can actually get in. And then that way they come directly into me. And I haven't had a problem within the last couple of days since Friday. And that's the way I've been doing my meetings. So that I'm just kind of curious. I haven't seen a waiting room and I haven't seen any passwords.
Do they have a
But
passcode for it?
I don't use a passcode in mine.
Okay.
Just because usually it's only 1 or 2 people
Yeah.
that I'm talking to and that's it.
Yeah.
So
And-
what's your suggestion?
Honestly, if you haven't had any issues, I wouldn't fret too much about it. The odds, honestly, the odds of any of us having our accounts get, it's not even hacked, but trolled is very slim, right? Because it's not like you put the meeting code out to a whole bunch of people. You don't put it out publicly. It's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it, honestly. Go ahead, PJ.
Okay, when I've used I usually don't use the waiting room. I usually use a passcode, because when I've used the waiting room in the past, there'll be people who come in late. And then I've got to worry about monitoring that as I'm trying to start the presentation and connect with everybody. And it's like that one extra cog to have to deal with, you know, kind of throws me off. And so what suggestions do you have for somebody like me? I mean,
That's where I would use the passcode.
okay.
Yeah. If it's that you're running a very formal meeting and you don't have, you know, you can't monitor people coming in, then use a passcode. The other thing I would suggest is have a wingman or a wingwoman or a wing person who can be a co-host who can monitor that. That is honestly the best way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you can, if you have the Zoom enterprise plan from YFP, I can't do it with my pro account, but you can do it with an enterprise plan. You can have co-hosts on there. At least I don't think I can have a co-host on my personal one.
Is that that's the top? Because I've got
The top guy.
okay.
Yeah.
You can have a co-host.
Yeah,
I've
you can
seen
have
that.
a co-host with the enterprise. I don't think you can with the pro, which is the one that I have, which is the $15 a month one. Or can you?
No, I think you can.
Okay, I'm gonna have to double check that. So yeah, and you can make anybody a co-host. So it's best if you can make, if you need a co-host, make sure it's somebody who knows how to work Zoom. So you don't have to teach them. Makes it way easier. But yeah, I would always recommend having a co-host, especially when you're running a formal meeting, because they can also help monitor the chat. Okay, groovy. All right, so let me go back into share screen here, into meeting settings. So if you don't have it yet where you have these as per the new security guidelines, it will be coming soon, because I'm pretty sure Zoom is rolling this out for everybody, where you either have to have a waiting room or you have to have a password to get in. So I just enabled my waiting room. It works the best for me. For some people it doesn't, but that's okay. Use the one that works the best for you. It gives you that option. So I just turned mine on, and then down here is where you can turn on your meeting passcode. And then there's a spot too, there we go. When you turn on enable passcode for PMI meetings, that's where you can make that passcode and just make it something simple for you. It can be a mix of numbers and letters. It can be a word. It doesn't matter what it is. I know some of you use just like wellness as your password. That's fine. Okay. So again, that's something that you'll want to do. Now, scrolling down here, there's a couple things that I like to make sure are enabled. So if waiting room is enabled, I like to make sure that phone users will be allowed to join the meetings rather than blocked, because sometimes people just need to join from the phone, like from a telephone number. So I make sure that they be allowed to join in meetings. And these are just some of the settings I go through to make sure that they're done. And anything that's off is off. Okay. I don't worry about those ones. So author, web clients, approve. Okay. So schedule a meeting. So when you're scheduling a meetings, I always have it where at least my video, the host video, is going to be on automatically. For participants, it's not necessary. It's up to you. Do you want people to be seen right away, or do you want to give them a chance? Because sometimes when people come on, they're doing other things and you don't know what they're doing. We saw a few funny things happen in Zoom when videos automatically went on. So sometimes it's nice when the participants are turned off automatically and allow them to turn it on when they're ready. Audio types, I always allow computer and telephone audio. Sometimes computer audio is a pain. I've run into it a few times, so it's always nice to have that backup of allowing both. And then I do allow participants to join before. If I'm doing, this is only for a scheduled meeting. So if it's like an instant meeting that I'm doing where I just start a meeting and send a link, obviously they can't join before me because it's not scheduled. But for scheduled meetings, it's up to you if you want to have that on or off. I have it on for about 5 minutes before if they want to. If it's going to be something super formal though, I do not allow that to happen because I want to be on there first so I have time to prep before people start coming in. Okay, what else do we need here? Enable personal meeting ID. I always have that enabled. And I would also, this is entirely up to you guys, but when it comes to scheduled meetings, do you want it to create a different meeting ID, which it can, or do you want it to just use your personal meeting ID? I prefer it just use my personal meeting ID. It's easier for me to manage. Because then I only have to think about that one rather than when I schedule a meeting, it creates an auto-generated meeting ID, which then I have to try and track down. Okay. Here you can have a watermark on or off. I just have it off. And then this one for a scheduled meeting, I always have participants muted when they join the meeting. Because again, same thing, you don't know what's going on in the background. If you've already started and they've got loud things going on, it can be very disruptive. So I always have all participants muted as soon as they come in and they can unmute as they need to. Okay, so that's just for a scheduled meeting. So if you're scheduling a meeting, those are the settings that I would recommend you have on. So in meeting, this is whether it's a scheduled meeting or not a scheduled meeting. What do you want to allow? I don't worry about third-party encryption. Because of the type of meetings that we do, it's usually not necessary unless you're doing much larger scale meetings that are going to be more public. I wouldn't worry too much about it yet. Okay. For chats, I always allow meeting and webinar participants to send chats. That's always on. And I allow users to save the meeting chats for everyone. So if my participants are having a chat between themselves and they want to be able to save that, then they can, rather than just what's going on between the hosts and them. Okay. Private chat, I do allow that because there's some things that maybe Samantha and I just want to chat between ourselves because we have specific questions and not everybody needs to be involved in that. I always allow those on as well. And then here, if you want to do auto saving for the chats, you can also enable that as well. So it'll automatically save periodically throughout your meeting, and it'll automatically save at the end. So then if you get people are like, hey, can I get the chat file? You don't have to worry about manually saving it. It'll automatically save it for you. Sending files. So I've had it where I've had to send like a PDF or something through the chat. I turn that on. It's very handy if you want to send a PDF, a Word document, whatever it might be. You can do that. So I always allow that. I don't worry about maximum size. I don't worry about only specified file types because again, our meetings are small enough. We don't usually have to worry about anyone being too crazy or silly. Feedback to Zoom. So I always have that on because if there's any issues, the feedback goes directly to Zoom and it helps them fix it faster. Again, that's up to you whether you want that data to go out there or not. I choose it to go on because if it helps Zoom create it better or fix bugs faster, that's a win. Allowing a co-host, yes, turn that on. Same things with meeting polls and quizzes. Sometimes it's handy to have a poll and a quiz going so that you can get feedback from people right away. So I turn those on. Meeting surveys, I don't worry too much about. I also don't worry about show meeting control bar or showing the Zoom window during screen share. However, if you're teaching somebody about Zoom controls, then you do want these turned on because then they can see all of your Zoom controls. If you're teaching like in meeting controls, these are going to be handy. I don't see many of you teaching that, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. For screen sharing, I always have it turned on, but only for one participant at a time. You can have it where multiple people can share a screen at the same time. That can get a little tricky. I prefer just one at a time. It's easier for participants to see that. Who can share? Everybody. And you have to turn this on because this won't automatically be on. You'll have to come in once you start your account, make sure that you flip it because it'll automatically default to host only, which means then your participants can't share. You have to go in, change the setting, leave the meeting, restart the meeting in order for the effect to take change. So just as soon as you get your meeting or your Zoom account, go in and change that right away. Who can share when someone else is sharing? So who can stop? Like if for example, I have Kathy sharing screen, but I want to take control, I can share my screen over top of hers and mine will come up by default as an override. So I only have that where the host can do that. So I can stop anyone's share and I can share my screen and take over your screen share and only allow the host to do that. Otherwise it gets a little hectic. Okay, what else do we put in? Annotation. This is, so if you want this cool annotation where you can have this handy dandy little spotlight and all my squiggly lines, make sure that that's turned on. Allow saving of screen share screens. You can allow that if you choose to. I do because if you guys need it and you want to see what I've circled, then you can see that. And then you can have that annotate bar, it'll show up. Otherwise, it won't show up until you enable this, very similar to the screen sharing where it says who can share. So that's something that has to be turned on before you can see it. Whiteboard is very handy, and same thing, turn on your remote control. So if you're working with someone and they're struggling, you're like, let me just take control of your screen. You can do that. I know I've done that with a few of you, right? It just makes it easier where we can figure out what's going on and tinker.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is a whiteboard? I know a whiteboard is chalkboard maybe at school, but what is a whiteboard?
So when you use whiteboard, I'll show you. Let me just give you a new share. Whiteboard, share. So it gives you just this blank board where you can draw beautiful pictures, which aren't very beautiful.
Okay.
But it just gives you a blank spot. So if you need to type something out where people can see it, or you need to draw an image to help people grasp the concept, that's what a whiteboard is.
Can
Okay,
you
I have
type on that?
I
Type?
think so. Yes, because it's just your annotate. And if I went to text, I can
Okay.
type.
Okay.
So it just gives you a blank spot rather than if you need to have something typed out, it's not covering anything.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
you can open whiteboard when you have like, if you have your own screen and you're sharing something else, you can still open whiteboard.
Yep, you would just, you have to go new share, and then there'll be an option for whiteboard. You just select whiteboard and it'll put this whiteboard over top. So then you can do any text or typing.
So is new share under share? Is that one of the options?
Yep.
Okay.
So when you're sharing screen and you find your Zoom controls, it'll say new share in place of share. And you just click on new share, you'll get that modal pop up. You select a different thing, and then you click the share button again.
And then to close the whiteboard, how do you not close the wrong one?
So to close the whiteboard, you can either hit the X button on that little pop-up, which will stop your whole screen share, or you can just click new share, select your screen again, and it'll automatically shift it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, spotlight, here we go. Okay, so we did remote control, okay, this next one is in-meeting reactions. These are fun. We like in-meeting reactions. they're entertaining. So I always turn them on because it gives people an opportunity to, maybe if they don't want to unmute, see like Samantha. So hold on, stay there, don't go. So like Samantha's, you'll see she has a little laughing guy in the top corner. So it helps people to just interact if, say, they're needing to eat lunch and they want to still share how they feel about it, whether it's like, yes, I like this, or no, I don't, or haha, that was funny. It just helps with interactivity if someone can't unmute to share their thoughts, and they're kind of cute. Okay, so I just turn those on because they're handy. It helps people stay connected if they can't unmute. Yeah, just like yours, Kathy, that's perfect. All right. Okay,
You
so
just re-click on them again and then they turn off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So double click. Okay.
You got it. So allow remove participants to rejoin. I always have that turned on. Sometimes technical things come in and we just can't fix it. We need to boot the person out. I always allow them to rejoin. So I just have that turned on automatically. If you're doing a scheduled one, do you want the invitee list to be shown in the participants panel? I have it on because it's always nice to see who's in there. This one, yes, always allow users to change their name when they join a meeting. So when you're in here, if you hover over top of your image, your picture or your thumbnail, you'll have 3 dots and it'll give you the option to edit or rename yourself. It's usually at the bottom of the list. So if you come in and maybe you're not logged in and it's not showing your name the way you want it to, you can rename it. So like, for example, I will stop my screen share here for a second and I'll show you. So if I rename myself, Kristen, change, and there, my name just automatically changes. So if you come in as like a user 57932, you can rename it back to PJ or Joyce. Okay.
That comes in handy too if somebody's using your computer for a meeting.
Yes. Yeah, because then they can rename themselves to, instead of, you know, if I was using your computer, I'd be named PJ, then I can just rename myself back to my actual name. And it's only for that meeting. It doesn't stay. So you don't have to worry about that person's account being wonky afterwards. There we go. See, I like yours. Have a great day, Kathy. That's great. That's fantastic. Okay, allow host or co-host to rename participants in the waiting room. I don't have this turned on, but this is handy. So if you know someone's come in and they're under the wrong name, you can actually change the name for them, which is great, especially if they're struggling to find those 3 dots. You have people who get a little bit of anxiety with technology. It's very handy. Hide participants' profile pictures in a meeting. I don't. I leave it. I like to see who's there. Okay. And then these are the advanced meeting settings. So do you want breakout rooms, remote support, report to Zoom? So again, that's if anything needs to be reported to Zoom to help them. This will also, if you remove someone, it'll ask you, do you want to report this to Zoom? I don't, obviously, because none of you have done anything bad. We're just having technical issues, but that will do that as well. Ooh, this one's handy right here. So actually, there's a couple. You can have automated captions. So if you're running a meeting and you need to have captions, this is a newer one. So I'm going to enable that. And then a full transcript. I also enable that, which these are brand new. So I haven't done that yet. But these make it so that there's auto captions. So for anyone who maybe has to turn the volume off, but they still want to read what's going on. And then a full transcript means that Zoom will transcribe everything that's being said, which is really handy, by the way. Let's say if you're doing a video that you want turned into a blog post, you have all the words. You just have to copy and paste it, do some light editing, you're good to go.
I know of someone who was actually doing that for Danielle DeGadio.
Yeah.
And it was great. She would send it out so we could get it.
Yeah, it's very handy. So I do recommend turning those on. Save captions, so you can actually allow it where participants can save the captions and the transcript as well. So if Kathy needs the transcript of what was said, you can go ahead and save it before the meeting ends. I don't worry about far end camera control or group HD video. Now this next one, this is where you turn on your virtual backgrounds. I don't think this is on by default, so just double check if your account hasn't done that yet. Turn it on. Same thing with filters and avatars. So if you want to have like the funny little mustache or the cool little sunglasses just for a fun Zoom, make sure that those are turned on. Okay, immersive view. This just changes the view a little bit for the person. I haven't noticed a huge difference with this. I turned it on. It's not going to hurt anything. I know that's not very helpful, but all right, so what else do we have in here? The rest of these I don't worry too much about. Down a little further, this is where you allow live streaming. So again, live streaming is always turned off by default. So you have to make sure when you start your account, or if you haven't been able to find it yet, under the more option, you have to go into your account, turn that on. And some of these you're not going to need, like I don't necessarily need workspace. I would keep custom and YouTube and Facebook. If you're going to do Twitch, that's handy as well. And then just make sure you hit the save button as well. Okay. Request permission to unmute. So that's where like if Kathy's muted, I can ask to unmute and then she'll get a pop-up saying, host would like you to unmute. There you go.
And I do.
And you do. So that's great. And then moving on down, stop incoming video feature allows meeting participants to turn off all incoming video feeds on their screen. So if you have a video feed coming through that you don't want to see, you can turn it off for only you. That gets a little complicated. You don't have to worry too much about it.
Yeah.
And then this is, go ahead.
I'd also like to say that unmute button, usually if you're having a meeting and you've got somebody else that's going to come in right afterwards and you want them to come in like right afterwards, that's when you'll ask them to unmute so that when the one person is finished, the next person can
just take
go right
over
ahead.
and you don't get a lag. Yeah.
And you don't get a lag.
Absolutely.
We've had that happen and I was told to unmute, please.
Yep, exactly. Okay, and then this last part is these last couple parts. So this is for email notifications. So you can notify any of the attendees when the transcript is ready, send a copy to alternative hosts, all that type of thing. So I turn those on and then you can just select what do you want to happen from that. So you also get this when attendees join meeting before host, notify the host that participants have joined before them. So if I scheduled a meeting and Kathy joined before me, I'd get a notification saying you have someone waiting for you in your Zoom room, which is very handy, especially if something happens and you just get a little sidetracked. It's happened. When a meeting is canceled, I always turn that on. So if you have to cancel a meeting, everybody who's invited gets an email notification saying this meeting has been canceled and we'll let you know when we'll reschedule it. And then when someone's scheduled a meeting for a host, so you'll be notified if someone schedules a meeting for, if you're the host, you'll get notified for that. Okay, this other piece, I don't do anything with Switcher, but it's on. So you can just leave it. I think this is on by default. Invitation emails, what language do you want it to be in? You can select that there. And then schedule privileges. You can assign scheduling privileges to other people if you have them on your team. And then integration authentication. This you won't have to use much. And I wouldn't worry too much about that unless you're asked for it. Okay. So those are all the meeting settings that I would go through. It's a fun long list. But then once it's done, it's done. You don't have to think about it anymore. Everything's set. And you're good to go. So then, you can make sure that your live stream's going, you got your virtual backgrounds, you got your filters, your profile is set up so people can see who you are if you have your camera off. Same thing with your name. I'll just go back to the profile here for a second. And the big one on here too is making sure that you have your correct time zone in here. Okay. All right, I know that was a lot to take in and I'm sure there's a lot of questions, or I don't want to go back over anything. So I'll put the link to this recording into the YFP chat as soon as it's ready. And then anyone who needs to go back over this, then you can. And the beautiful thing again about the recording is you can pause me and tell me to take a breath, which is very handy.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Just on the Zoom. Okay, so I have an account and I use it. But now I'm going to have to use another account because I'm actually going to be the president of BNI next year, starting, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to have to use the BNI account. So how is that? Is that going to conflict with my account in any way? Or is there anything that I mean, mine's just going to stay to the side and.
Yep, yours will just stay to the side and it'll just depend on who you're logged in as. So for example, I have access to the YFP account, but I also have my own. So as long as I'm logged into the YFP one, that's the one I'm using. If I'm logged into mine, that's the one I'm using. So you just want to make sure when you log in that you're logged in under the right person. So if you have multiple accounts that you're managing, have different profile pictures for each one. Don't use the same profile picture for each one. It'll be much easier to tell.
All right. And I have to update my picture.
There you go. So put something different there. All right. So is that helpful? Go ahead, PJ.
Okay, so maybe I'm doing it wrong. If I have a room set up where they have to come into, and then I have to let them in after the meeting starts, do I just go to participants till I'm in, or where is it I let them in?
Yep, it's under participants, and then you'll get the participant panel. down the right hand side, and it'll give you, if you have multiple people coming in, and I'm sorry, I can't show this to you at the moment. But if you have multiple people come in, up at the top, it'll say admit all. You just click admit all. Most of them, like some of them, you can actually just turn off the waiting room once you start. So for example, once I start with you guys, I turn off the waiting room, admit all, and then anyone else coming in,
Okay.
they can just come in. However, my
Yeah.
personal account doesn't allow me to turn off the waiting room at all. So I just have to pay attention.
Okay. And so you have to pay attention. And then does their name show up at the top then where you can find them easily?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Once they come in, it'll depend on where everybody is. So if say you've unmuted yourself or your participants have unmuted, anyone who's unmuted will be up at the top because obviously they want to speak, and then everyone else will filter down, but it does show up by who came in first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Joyce, go ahead.
I have just a regular Zoom account that I'm not paying for. Is everything that you taught us this morning the same on there?
No, it won't. You won't have as much editing liberties. So you won't be able to create your own ID. There's a lot of things you won't be able to do. You won't be able to do any live streaming. And then you're going to be limited to 40-minute meetings for any meeting now. It used to be you could do unlimited one-on-one, but now they've limited to even one-on-one meetings. You are limited to 40 minutes.
If I only have one or two people at a time, is it, and I don't care how long, I'm limited to 40. Is it necessary, or should I be having a paid account?
You know, how I look at it is if you are meeting with people consistently, and obviously you're running a business, a paid account is the best way to go. It's a tax write-off anyways. And then say you have a meeting that needs to go longer, you're not constantly having to resend links
I
to
had
people.
that happen once.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then them having to rejoin a meeting just to finish up the call. It shows up a lot better on a professional level, and it's a lot less hassle for your participants.
What's the cost?
So the pro account is $15 a month. And then if you want to use the YFP account for you guys, it would be $30 a month, or not the pro account, the enterprise one is $30 a month. So $15 more, and you get more capability than the pro account, plus the webinar module, plus unlimited recording.
Is that both through YFP, or is the pro account strictly through Zoom?
Yeah, the pro account is strictly through Zoom. The enterprise account is through YFP. But honestly, if you're doing business and you want to use Zoom, I'll just put my flag in the sand. You have to have a pro account at least.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
No problem.
And where are those recordings kept of the Zooms? Through YFP?
So through YFP, well, through any of it, it's just your account. So when you're on your profile, to get to your recordings down here on the left, you go to recordings, and then you get your whole list of recordings. Okay. And then you just open them up. And if you need to share them, by the way, you open them up, you click on this share thing. This is what I do. And I always turn off passcode protection, and then I don't have to worry about passing out a passcode to everybody if they need to get on this recording. But you have to go into the meeting information first before you can turn off the passcode. Okay, and then you can just copy shareable link, and off it goes. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I think that's about as much as I want to melt your all's brain today, and we'll just continue melting it next week as we dive a little bit more into Zoom. Just to give you a heads up of what we're covering next week in Zoom. One momento, I need to go here. And then, nope, not there, wrong spot, content. I'll give you a heads up for what we're covering. Blogging, no, we're in Zoom. So next week, we're gonna actually talking a little bit about meetings and recordings. So I won't go too deep into that, but I'll show you, how you can take a recording, how you can download a recording, and then also how can you share it in a very simplish way. Ooh, that's a good one. So Ariella said she paid less than $100 for Pro with a coupon code for a year. So that's pretty good. And the other thing to remember is it's all tax write-off. So if you had to pay taxes this year, which I hope none of you did, but if you did, here's something else that you can put towards your expenses so then you don't have to pay taxes next year. Because nobody likes to. It's not fun. We don't like it. All right, so with that, I'm going to share my screen again. We'll go into the rest of our PowerPoint, end it off for today. And oops, I forget I have to share screen before I make my PowerPoint bigger right now. And then from current slide. All right. So if you're brand new to YFP and you want to learn more or try the tools, or maybe you're like, I just want to use the tools, there's a few ways you can do that. So the first way is you can subscribe. If you already know what you want to use the tools, you can choose a plan that fits your marketing needs, select whatever add-ons you need. And then the key point is book that onboarding appointment so we can make sure that the elves can help you set up any technicalities, any third-party things, make sure that your Shackley PWS is integrated properly. And you can do that by going to yourfreedomproject.com/pricing. You'll see we have 2 tiers of plans. We have builder plans and leader plans. It doesn't matter where you start. You can upgrade or downgrade at any time. And that's where you can check that out. The next way to do it is to do a 30-day, oops, I'm trying to move that out of my way. It's not moving. There we go. To do a 30-day test drive or a free test drive and sign up for a fully functional 30-day trial, you can start testing out the system for free. And then again, it's really important to book that appointment because we'll also help you with that onboarding, again, making sure everything's integrated properly, that your PWS is in there properly with the right coding. And you can do that by going to yourfreedomproject.com/trial to start your trial. And then to book the onboarding appointments or to request a guided tour, you can do that through contacting us at the Help Center. So you can visit our Help Center and request a guided tour. And then also from the Help Center, you can join the YFP Facebook group for business builders. And to get there, you go to yourfreedomproject.com/support. And let's explain how to do that onboarding booking too. So here in the Help Center, there's a few things you can do. One, if you need to get in touch with us, you can give us a call. That's first thing. This is also where you can join the YFP Facebook group just by clicking on that link. It'll take you there. You can request to join, and then our admins will let you in. If you're having any technical issues, please submit a ticket. Do not post this in the Facebook group or the business chat because we can't track it and there's no guarantee it can get to the right elves. So by submitting a ticket, it's going right to us. We can track it and we can monitor what's going on and nothing gets missed. And then if you need to view your tickets, so see the correspondence between you and the elves, that'll be under view your tickets. You can reply back to the elves, ask any other questions regarding that issue. That's all in there. Now to book that appointment, so if you've already decided, yep, I want to do this, or you've started a free trial and you've already subscribed in any way, shape, or form, make sure you come here and book an appointment with one of the elves to make sure that we can get everything integrated properly. I know some will put the main thing is making sure that your PWS is integrated properly because it's not as simple as just putting in your Shackley ID. We have to get code from your website, which you don't need to learn how to do that. Let the elves do it for you. Okay, so that's where you would book your onboarding appointment. And this is also where you would book an appointment for a guided tour. If you'd like to just see what we've got, one of our expert guides can guide you through the system, and then you can decide if this is something that you'd want to try, and we'll help you set it up right there. And then the last one here is chat with an elf. So if you just have a quick question or need a little bit of guidance on where to find something, you can chat with an elf. This will link you to their Facebook Messenger. So it'll only work right now through Messenger, where then you can connect with them and ask your question. And if they need you to submit a ticket, they will let you know. And if there's something that they can answer, then obviously they will answer that for you. Okay. All right. And again, to get to the Help Center, that is yourfreedomproject.com/support. I highly recommend bookmarking this page to your browser. It's really handy to have bookmarks so you can get to it really quickly without necessarily having to sign in all the time. Then you can just get teleported right here. It's cool how we can work on the internet and just get teleported around. All right, so with that, I want to thank you for attending this demo. I hope you're feeling a little more empowered to do your Shackley business online and to utilize Zoom a little bit more for staying connected with your people. And with that, just a quick reminder that tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, we are live with our wellness webinar with Natalie Grace talking about sports nutrition for the everyday athlete. This is going to be a fantastic webinar that if you have people who are into fitness, or maybe whether it's a high level athlete or, kind of like the rest of us who just kind of like to work out here and there, but want to do a little bit better, this will be a great event to invite them to. Make sure that you're promoting it on your social spaces. And then Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we are back in class for NWU with Zoom Masterclass 2.0. And we're going to be going more into the meeting settings and it'll be a little bit more in depth with Zoom. Okay. So that'll be at 8 p.m. on Thursday. And then again, we're back Monday for Marketing Monday and Content Creators Club. And then we do it all over again. So until then, we'll see you all. Look forward to seeing all of you in NWU who are subscribed. And then same for looking forward to seeing you all for tomorrow night's webinar. Until then, take care and thanks so much for being here.